Hi everyone, my name's Kelly Watkins. I'm a forensic psychologist and a cognitive behavioural therapist. And I'm really sorry that I can't be there today at the Blissful Gut Retreat, but I have recorded my presentation, so I hope you find it helpful and you'll be given ways to contact me if you do have any further questions. So let's try this out. Okay. So to start off with, I really wanted us to think about why is mental health still such a taboo in this day and age? And I think that there has been so much done about promoting mental health and trying to reduce the taboo around it. But I think a few of these reasons are why it continues to be a taboo. So thinking about the stigma, this could be the stigma that you place on yourself. It could be the stigma that you feel others place on you. It could be societal stigma in general. But there is still some sort of stigma around mental health. Although I think it is lessening, I think it's something that is still there. And that's really linked to the next idea of that fear of being judged. That a lot of people, because with mental illness, you can't see it. If you have a broken arm, you can see your broken arm. But if you've got something going on inside of your head, it's really difficult for others to see. So sometimes that can lead to people not understanding it or judging it, but people fearing being judged because others don't understand it. And because some people still feel that having a mental health difficulty means that they're weak, when it is far from that. Trust me, the people that I've worked with that have experienced mental health difficulties are some of the strongest people that I have ever met in my life. But there is still that perception that they will be perceived as weak. And like I said, with a broken arm, it's invisible. There may be some elements where others could see, such as if you're experiencing a panic attack. However, it's sometimes very difficult to actually see when someone's experiencing difficulties within their mental health. And unless you experience it, you've done the reading around it, or you've studied it, there still is that lack of understanding in the general population, kind of. The reason I say kind of is because we are talking about it more. People are being more open about it, which is breaking down the walls and making it more understood, more widely understood by a wider range of people. But there is still some limits in our understanding. Societal pressure, and I mean this with the respect that in society sometimes there is a right way to act, but there really isn't any right way to act. People may think that they can't come forward and say they've got a mental health difficulty because it will impact them at work, it will impact with their friends, they'll be seen as weak. But again, it just really isn't the case, but it creates why it still remains a taboo to some extent. Then cultural differences. Around the world, there are a range of different cultures, and there are a range of ways that people actually understand what mental health is, why it presents in certain ways. And some cultures see hearing voices as a connection to being more spiritual, to being more enlightened. Whereas other cultures see that as an indication that someone could be experiencing psychosis or a psychotic disorder. So being aware that there is those cultural differences. So they're just a few of ideas that I thought could really explain why it's still such a taboo, but you may have your own thoughts on why it is still taboo. And I do really think that the taboo is lessening. I really do, but I still think we do have a way to go. But bearing that in mind, what I really want us to think about is the connection looking at psychology and CBT and our gut health. So just to give you an idea of how our brain is connected to our gut, have you ever had oh, I've got a gut feeling about this. I know this. And you sometimes you even hold your stomach, that I know this is going to happen. I know something is going to go wrong or it's going to go right. All that feeling of butterflies, so that excitement, that anxiety and that apprehension. And just even asking ourselves that question, that shows there is a connection from our brain to our gut. There is something going on between the two that allows us to feel that gut feeling or allows us to feel butterflies. And bearing that in mind, the thing that creates that connection is the gut-brain axis. And when we're looking at IBS, we can really see that how IBS is linked to our health is linked to the gut-brain axis. But within this axis, it works both ways. So if you imagine like your stomach or your gut talks to your head and your head talks to your gut. And it goes both ways. And the reason why that is because you have neurons in your brain and you have neurons in your gut. And those neurons work exactly the same way. So they communicate using the same neurotransmitter, which is serotonin, which you may know that as kind of the happy hormone, the serotonin that makes you feel good. But it's stored in both parts of your body, but they provide different things in each part. So inside your gut, the serotonin actually helps to process your food, to allow kind of that smooth and painless processing through your system. But serotonin is the communicator, so that allows the neurons to speak to each other basically in your gut and in your brain. So in your brain, makes you feel happy. In your stomach, allows for the smooth, painless processing of food. But it helps other neurons to talk to each other. And there's a lot of other neurotransmitters which are both in the gut, in the brain. So you have GABA, which is the one that calms you and that moderates anxiety. So if you imagine those feelings of butterflies, if in kind of thinking about the GABA, that could create that feeling of butterfly. And then we have dopamine, and dopamine is the thing that gives you the drive. It gives you the push. It is your motivator. And you get that kind of the idea of the dopamine hit when you experience just really good, so slightly more than serotonin. So it's more than happiness. It's that pleasure. It's that really, really feel good neurotransmitter. But it also really helps you when you're trying to get to sleep. And it also is important in your memory. But it's also produced in the gut. So if you think about, you've got those three different neurotransmitters, and they are either stored in the brain and the gut, both, but they both provide a service. They both allow them to communicate to each other and create part of the gut-brain axis. And then you've got another part of your brain, which is the amygdala. So the amygdala is kind of right in the core of your brain, known as, for some, as the old brain. So it's a bit of our brain which is constantly searching for threat. So you know the idea sometimes when you wake up in the middle of the night and you feel like you're dropping and you get the feeling like, that is because your amygdala has misunderstood or misperceived something as threat. So it's woken you up. And that could just be a slight change in your body temperature. But the amygdala, because it's part of the old brain, isn't as developed as what some neuropsychologists or neuroscientists would call the new brain. So it's that part of the fight, flight, or freeze, or even the fawn response. But the amygdala is also influenced by what goes on in your gut. And how I love to explain this to people is, if you imagine your neurons, your neurotransmitters, as like birds, and your internal world is an ecosystem. And those neurotransmitters, so as I mentioned, the dopamine, the GABA, serotonin, they all sing and they all talk to each other, and they pass the necessary information around your ecosystem so from your brain to your gut. And that's what creates the axis. If we hold on the idea of this rainforest, so if you imagine that kind of your gut is kind of full of all these beautiful little, the microbiome is these little bits of all beautiful little life forms. And some of those cells are really, really important. So if we kind of see them as the birds of paradise of the cells, and they're the EC cells, and they produce 95% of the serotonin in your whole body. But we know, like the rainforest, the ecosystem within our body is fragile and can be damaged. And how I like to see this is the 4 horsemen of the gut apocalypse. So this is what is going to impact on the production of the serotonin in your body. So that could be antibiotics, stress, sugar, and any sort of a range of environmental toxins. So when the delicate birds of paradise can become quite endangered or even get wiped out by the 4 horsemen of the 4 horsemen of the gut apocalypse. And if that happens, you stop producing serotonin, dopamine, and GABA. And then all of those birds and that bird song just goes silent. So there's no communication between the neurons in your gut or in your brain. And when this happens, this means that there's kind of the no calmness or happiness in your brain, and there's no smooth, pain-free passing of food within your gut, because they aren't able to communicate to each other, because they've been impacted or completely wiped out by either antibiotics, stress, sugar, or environmental toxins. And really, in a nutshell, that is going to feel like IBS and depression or anxiety. So whether we're looking at framing it by what's going on in our gut or what's going on in our head, it's going to make a massive difference to how we're feeling, how we're thinking, and how we're behaving. And in line with this, I love to show this picture. It's an analogy, so the stress bucket. So the idea when these 4 horsemen kind of try to come rolling in with on the gut apocalypse, that we all have a stress bucket. So the idea that we all have a level of stress that we can carry. So we've got a normal level. That is going to be different for everyone. So my stress levels may be naturally higher that I can manage than some of you, and yours might be higher than mine. Some of us might be lower, and that's completely normal. We all have different levels. But we can all be impacted differently as well by different things, whether it's health concerns, whether it's work, whether it's lack of sleep, whether it's family problems, money worries, generalized anxiety, or just anxiety in general, maybe poor diet, difficulties with change, major life events. All of them, they can either be just like little drops of stress, just kind of that little drizzle of rain. And sometimes it can feel like a massive downpour. And if we haven't got the holes in our stress bucket to be able to cope with these stresses, we're going to overflow. And the 4 horsemen love the overflowing. That is when they come in and they really massively impact our internal ecosystem. So we need to be aware of the things that will actually help us to empty our stress bucket so we can stay at a normal level. So regardless if we have a massive downpour or if we just have a drizzle of water coming in, that we're able to cope. We're able to bounce back from the things, and the 4 horsemen haven't come riding in. So the idea is here kind of having about good time management, being able to do things that you enjoy, resting and relaxing. And that can be whatever is helpful for you. Maybe even talking to other people, but just having an idea of what are the things that will fill up your stress bucket, but also what are the things that will help empty it, and making sure that you're regularly doing things that help to empty your stress bucket. So if we bring in CBT into this, when we're looking at what CBT skills can help you to manage those 4 horsemen. So the first would be really, we call it psycho-red, but it's basically psychological education. So that helps you to understand your mental health, whether that is stress or anxiety, depression, social anxiety, anything that's going on for you. One of the main things that we do initially in CBT is just to explain, to help you to understand what is going on. And sometimes just by helping you to understand what's going on, just makes things feel a little bit easier. With CBT, it's quite holistic. So we look at kind of, are you drinking enough water? Are you drinking a little bit too much caffeine? What's your sugar intake like? What's your sleep like? Are you doing enough physical activity? So they're things that we look at and we kind of make sure that you are living kind of a balanced lifestyle. And then when we look at actually looking at your brain and worry and anxiety, we can help you by distinguishing between hypothetical and current worry. Because often when we feel anxious, we get wrapped up in thinking that everything's a current worry, but really it's something that's quite hypothetical. For example, you may think that like getting work done on time or being late for something is something that's a current worry, when really it's hypothetical. And a really key, easy way to understand how you can do this is asking yourself, can I do something about this right now? If the answer is yes, it is a current worry. If it is no, it is a hypothetical worry. If it's a current worry, we increase your problem solving skills that can help you to deal with that. If it's a hypothetical worry, it's about using attention training and breathing exercises to be able to let that worry go. Another thing that we often use when we're looking at worry is worry time. So it's when we only allow ourselves to worry for a particular period of the day. Throughout the day, any other times any sort of worries come in, we use attention training to be able to manage our worries, have control over our worries, and then being able to come back to our worry time later on in the day. Then we have cognitive restructuring. So this is where we restructure what's going on in our head. So a really simple way of doing this is asking ourselves, what am I thinking? What is evidence for that thought being true? What is evidence for that thought not being true? And what is an alternative thought? There is a lot more long-winded way of doing it, but that's a general structure. But it just allows you to really query about your thoughts and allow you to restructure them so they don't become so overwhelming, so anxiety-provoking, such in a way that they change your mood a lot. Then kind of thinking about what's your time management like. So again, with the practicalities of CBT, we may looking at your productivity, thinking about, okay, when are you most productive? When are you most likely to get things done? Making you be able to prioritise urgent and important items, and then just helping you just to focus one thing on the time, and then just to give you some ideas about how you can shut out distractions. And it's just about to help you to manage your time, which will reduce your stress. Thinking about how important it is to take regular breaks. So when you go through CBT, or if you're working with a psychologist, it makes you accountable to someone. So it can help you to really kind of understand the importance of, okay, well, I spoke to my therapist about this, so maybe I should kind of go out for a walk a couple of times a week. And that kind of leads into activity scheduling. So we would help you to really understand, to plot your week and to plan activities that both make you feel good, make you help get things done, and things that are important to do, but you don't really want to do that much. And it's about that balance. And so when we're feeling stressed, when we're feeling low, if we've got a balance of activities, it really, really helps us. And again, assertiveness training. So really train you to be more assertive. And this can be just communicating, could be role playing, practicing how you can communicate your needs, practicing saying what you want instead of saying I'm sorry, practicing saying thank you instead of saying I'm sorry, and really being able to support you to get what you want out of life. Then relaxation and mindfulness skills. Relaxation skills obviously are great just for relaxing, helping you to lower your stress bucket. And you've got mindfulness techniques which allow you to be in the current moment, which are great when we're trying to work with negative thoughts or anxious thoughts, and really just allows you to be in the moment and roll with kind of what life throws at you. So the idea is the Jon Kabat-Zinn quote that you can't always stop the waves, but you can learn how to surf. And that is a great way of how we can think about mindfulness. And symptom discrimination. So often when we have IBS or anxiety or depression, it's really difficult to understand where these symptoms are coming from. So CBT can help you to learn how to discriminate and understand which symptoms are coming from which, and then what can I do about it. So that is a real snapshot. Obviously, if you do want to learn out about any of these, obviously contact me, but they're a really good range of skills that you can even research yourself to help you to understand how you can use them. But obviously I would recommend that if you are using them, to do it with the support of a suitably qualified therapist as well. And to give you my top tips of managing your mental health for good gut health, I'd say managing your anxiety and stress thoughts. So whether that is through cognitive restructuring, whether that's through worry time, whether that's through the attention training, whatever it is to help you to manage your thoughts so they're not so overwhelming. Grounding skills, so they're like mini little meditations to bring you back into the moment rather than where your head or your gut's trying to pull you. So a really quick one is to notice 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can feel, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Or just counting your breaths for a minute. And if you count your breaths for a minute when you're feeling relatively calm, you'll get your resting breathing rate, which is normally between 8 and 14. And then if you do it again when you're feeling anxious, feeling stressed, you will be breathing a lot faster, because when we are feeling a heightened emotion, we breathe from our chest and not our stomach. So we breathe shallower and quicker. So it'll be about repeating that minute again, repeating it until you get back to your resting breathing rate. And to-do lists and TA lists. So the idea is that at the end of the day, have your TA list. So the things that you were able to get done today that you were really proud of. And this could be 1 thing, could be 2 things, could be 3 things, whatever it is. So it's about shifting from those massive long to-do lists. If you do want to have a to-do list, aim to only have 3 things on it per day, max. And then your today lists can be as long as you like. So they are my top tips. I hope you have found them helpful. And as I said, we'll be showing ways that you can contact me. And again, I'm sorry that I'm not there, but I hope you have an amazing time on the retreat. Thank you, and hopefully I'll see some of you soon.